Well, hi. Doodle and I are sitting here enjoying a beverage, one of my favorite all time mugs, the Starbucks mug from Germany. Little tale behind that, I had a student a number of years ago. Her father flew for UPS, and I don't remember if it was for Christmas or whatever it was, but you know how kids are in elementary school. Um, I opened up this package and there was this great mug from Germany. And I remember this. I wish I remembered her name. Something that uh, I still have, and this has been, gosh, close to 2 decades since I had this girl in class. So, anyway, if you ever catch this, sorry I don't remember your name. Thank you very much. I still use it to this day. So, today I was thought I'd talk about some boomer travel topics. And this kind of came about because of an article I wrote a couple months ago for Auto Europe. They approached me and asked me if I would write an article about a road trip somewhere in Europe, and I chose the Mosel River, I believe it was. And they wanted me to present it from the standpoint of traveling as a senior, a word I still have a hard time come out of my mouth. So anyway, they wanted me to talk about it as traveling through the senior's perspective, and I found it kind of an interesting challenge, I guess you'd say. Not a challenge so much as I thought it was kind of odd because, first off, even though I'm approaching 65, I don't think of myself as a senior. I don't even like to use the word boomer, but what are you going to do? Um, to me, there are very few things that are different from the way I traveled when I was younger or the way younger travelers do now. They might use a hostel as opposed to um, hotels or bed and breakfasts or whatever, but you know, it's a small thing. Otherwise, we don't do things much differently. We don't go into for extreme kinds of activities anymore. So, you know, that's a little bit different, but for the most part, we do and see the same things as anybody else, regardless of our age. Things that some boomers um, kind of, you know, might use it as a bellwether for a way to decide whether they go or not. You know, they might look at whether the exchange rate is going to be good. And I have to admit that sometimes in the past, when the exchange rate has really been bad against the dollar, it has changed where we might go. If we might normally be going to Europe, we would say, okay, we're not going to go to Europe. We'll just stay in the States and travel around the States a little bit. So if that has a little bit, um, it would be silly to say that terrorism doesn't get into some people's minds. It's obvious that it does when you look at the statistics for traveling to Paris. You know, after the Charlie Hebdo type of incidents, um, you know, people do look at that. Natural disasters, you know, earthquakes and stuff, things like that. Political unrest, is there, you know, a coup d'etat or something where you're thinking about going? But by and large, you know, we don't think about any of that stuff any more than anybody else of any age group. Um, the one thing that I did think about after that is um, as a baby boomer, as somebody who's, you know, in the mid 60s, parents who are considerably older, late 80s into the mid 90s, um, find that that part of it has impacted our thinking when it comes to travel. Um, in our personal instance, we've had to deal with that, finding places for my folks to live. And you tend to think about that a little bit more. Um, are we going to go away at a particular time? So that was the number one issue that determines whether we go anywhere or not is elderly parents. And I think that's unique. Fortunately for us, at least, we don't have younger um, kids that were still, having uh, college or something like that we have to think about also. It's all about those parents that we have to be concerned with. So that was the main impetus for that, for this particular live stream. But I did want to also talk about some things I noticed from AARP travel trends for those of us in the boomer genre. It's nice to see so many of us out there and traveling. I have to admit I'm at the tail end of the boomer thing at 65. We're on the younger end. So approximately about 99% of us are still out there planning on taking at least one trip a year. But the majority are still figuring on taking 5 or more trips a year. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be gone for extended periods. Maybe that's just a weekend getaway or something like that. But still out there, still going strong, visiting new places, seeing new things. Interestingly enough, the majority, although it's a slight majority, still plan on focusing their travel inside the country rather than internationally. Take that for what it is. I don't really know. But for those people who are planning on taking international trips, that bucket list, a term I really dislike, but people like to use it. Bucket lists seem to be the area that offers the greatest motivation for taking international vacations. Seeing that thing that they've wanted to see, the Taj Mahal or Sacre-Cœur in Paris, or Big Ben. I don't know, just whatever's on your bucket list. That seems to be the greatest impetus for traveling to Europe. We we love going to Europe just to go. I mean, we just, most of the time, even though Paris is one of our favorite places, we tend to experience a lot of the countryside also. It makes for a more interesting and enjoyable trip to juxtapose them. So bucket lists are a big motivation for traveling internationally. Surprisingly enough, and I found this interesting, that boomers still travel a lot in the summertime. I wonder if that's a throwback to when they had kids and that was the only time you could travel was in the summertime. Spring and fall are also very popular. Seems that, old habits die young, or die hard. You're used to having kids, you're used to taking vacations at a particular time, and that just seems to be the way it is. So why do we travel? I have a guest coming in who my wife just walked in, is in the background back there, sneaking by. Yeah. She's going to her art studio. She's got an art studio back there, and she's working on some new paintings. And she didn't realize she was going to be live on YouTube. Oh, here she comes now. Oh, way to go. Anyway, so the, I'm kind of rambling here a little bit. That's kind of obvious. But you know, what's the motivation for all this travel? Um, I guess for a sizable number, the majority of people, it would seem, um, it it's all about traveling to be with family and friends. Maybe that's not, maybe I shouldn't say the majority, but a large number. Um, the largest percentage of us take a trip for that age-old reason. They just you want to get away from the normal humdrum, the everyday, and you want to relax and you want to rejuvenate, recharge the batteries, kind of thing. I would throw in there, particularly if you're traveling internationally, you want to experience new things. You want to, see things that are different. Um, you don't want the same old thing. Uh, that takes it to, also to talking about the type of trip that's desired. Many, many people want a laid back, relaxing kind of fun in the sun experience. Um, Surprisingly enough, Joe and I never, ever have that kind of vacation. Uh, it's always busy and active. We're on the go from the get go, from, early in the morning till later in the evening. We just don't. I mean, it's amazing how many miles we put on each and every day walking around Paris or wherever we are. Uh, we haven't we have not missed much of Paris on foot. Certainly, we do take transit or something like that, but most of the time we walk it, and we just love being out and experiencing it. So our days, our trips are exceedingly busy and active, getting as much into a trip as we can. The idea of just laying around the beach or whatever just does not appeal to us. Now, I will say that um, one of my favorite activities is to simply sit at a sidewalk cafe and watch the world go by. I really, really love that. Now, there's my laid back and relaxing, having a beer, watching the crowds go by. Um, there's just nothing better as far as I'm concerned. Um, so, where are people in our age group going? Surprising, as I said earlier, mostly staying in the country. But when they do decide to go and take an international trip, Latin America is now at the top of the heap. For many years, it was, Europe was very, very, very popular. And that's kind of slipped a little bit. Now people are wanting to go to Latin America. Um, that's a different culture. As anybody who knows us, we're fixated on all things European. We just feel like there's so much there that we haven't seen. Um, I think that when people talk about going to Europe and they say, "Oh, we've seen it," well, what have you seen? You've been to Paris, you've been to London, you've been to Berlin, and these are all great places, but there's so much more. You know, there are the tiny little villages in the south of France. There's the lovely little places on the water in Denmark and the mountains of Germany, and there's just so much. And if you say you've been to Germany, if you've only been to the big cities, you haven't experienced Europe to its fullest. So we're fixated. We continue to go back. Um, but I have to admit, we have started spending a little bit more time traveling the U.S. as well. Um, Last spring, we spent several weeks in the Charleston, South Carolina area and down into Savannah, and truly, truly loved it. It was an awesome experience. Loved Charleston and Savannah, and maybe not surprisingly, the South is ranking as the most popular place to travel to in the United States. Then followed by the West Coast. Maybe not the West Coast, but the West. And well, as people who live in the West, I can attest to that. It's awesome to come out here. And so, having had our experience in Charleston, Savannah, and that area, I can certainly attest to the allure of visiting the South, at least some places in the South. So, for our first live stream, this was an interesting experience and kind of fun. I see on the live chat, Rosanna Wyatt, it has dropped in, and I appreciate that, Rosanna. It's nice to see you. I was kind of hoping to have a few other people kind of drop in as well, agreeing with us on the aging parents. Yeah, it can be tough. So I see that you say you're doing that this year in Canada, celebrating 150 this year. That I'm guessing that means you're staying within the country and traveling within Canada. It will take time. Not. Hey, Rosanna agrees. It's really not a fan of sitting on the beach and relaxing. I love the sun and warmth. Absolutely. I mean, it's like when we traveled to the south of France, or I'm just using that as an example. I want it to be sunny. Yeah, so you're traveling across the country from east to west coast, or vice versa. We are planning on heading down to the Arizona area in May. We're going to go down and look at oh gosh, the place has totally escaped my mind. Goodness gracious, how can I do that? Grand Canyon, so on and so forth. Monument Valley. What's the great little town in Arizona? I can't believe it. Hey, Dew's up. It's dropping in. From east to west. Are you going to get all the way out to Vancouver? Ontario to BC? Awesome. Well, we don't live, in relative terms of North America, we don't live too far away from Vancouver and that area. It's 4 or 5 hour drive. It's not too far. Anyway, so Doodle is saying it's about time to go outside. So I think we're going to end this live stream. First one ever. I did try one a couple of days ago that really didn't work out. Hopefully this has worked out well, and I've been struggling with the bit rate and everything like that, and hopefully everything's smooth. So Doodle is calling, and he says, Dad, we need to go out, so I'm going to end this here. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll talk to you again soon, hopefully. Thanks again.